Hello, everybody. I am Jan Jeremias, and I'm here with my best bud, Tonka. And we are really excited to welcome you to Pets, People, Life, and Longevity, which is our conversation about life with a pet and all that that means. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Debra Hamilton, ADR, who is our guest today, who I've learned so much from, and I'm so excited to have her share with you a little bit about herself and how she got to do what she's doing, and hopefully ask her some great questions so she'll give us some great information.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Jan. And I have loved what I'm doing as Hamilton Law and Mediation, where you can find me on the website, soon to be Hamilton ADR, North Carolina, because I've moved. And so I'm shifting and rebuilding my site, but the Hamilton Law Mediation site is still up. It tells you all about what I do with conflict resolution and also making a plan for your pet, because to me, how we take care of our pets and how we resolve conflicts between people over pets is really needs to be done with the forethought of the animal in your top of mind.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think that the planning part is what I was so drawn to. I mean, so here I am, I'm divorced, which, but I was real lucky enough to, my ex-husband was very cordial, and it was really my dog, and he let me keep my dog. So that was great, but not everybody is in that situation.
No. And no one makes a plan for it. In fact, I was interviewed, oh my God, it must be 10 years ago now. And it was a good friend of mine, Catherine Miller, who's a very well-known divorce attorney in New York. And we were on her podcast, and we were talking about divorcing with pets. And it's about making a plan. And when she got off the radio, she said, my ex told me about 10 years after we were divorced that the one thing he regretted giving me full custody of was the dog. Because nobody really, when relationships break up or something happens to you, understands that you need to plan for the care of that pet. My very funny statement is, unfortunately, your pet doesn't hate your ex. So if you are, like you were, very lucky to be able to take the dog going forward, your dog, if they don't like veterinarian kennels or anything when you're going on vacation, would most likely love to be with your ex, even though you'd rather, spit out nails. However, it's about the dog, not about you. And there are so many cottage industries that have arisen to transport the dog from point A to point B, but you just have to be adult about it and be able to make sure that that's what will work for you. And it doesn't mean a week on, a week off. It just means maybe on vacation, maybe if you travel for business, the dog could go to their other parent, like children do, because dogs do get attached to everyone. And I know my dogs don't ever spend a minute with my husband unless I'm not around. And most of your listeners will probably say the same thing. Their dog or cat or bird or horse doesn't spend any time with the other party unless they're not around. And so remember that when you're getting divorced. But divorce isn't the only time you need to make a plan. You actually need to make a plan even if you're happily married or happily in a relationship, because what happens to your pet if something happens to you is something almost no one. I know you have, Jan, because you're part of the MAP community that we have Wednesdays, but no one makes a plan and writes it down. We talk to our friends and our family sometimes about what it is we want done with our pets, but we don't write it down. And I have to tell you, writing it down is the single most important thing you're going to do for the love of your pet.
I mean, I love that, because I think that when I got on your first community call that you have, I'd always thought, okay, if something happens to me and I die, God forbid, then I want my pet to be taken care of. And I had money in my will that was going to go for their care and whatnot. But I never thought of what would happen if something happened to me temporarily or whatever. And never even, I mean, because we don't think about those things until they happen. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh,
I
So if
mean,
you,
COVID brought this to a head because a lot of people ended up in the hospital and had pets. And if they lived alone like you did, animal care and control would come to their house because the neighbors would call and say, we haven't seen Jan in a week, because Jan drove herself to the doctor's office or the hospital because she wasn't feeling well, but she didn't realize she was going to be thrown in the hospital, made no plans for Tonka. And then the neighbors called, animal care and control comes and gets Tonka. Let's say Tonka's an Afghan, and animal care and control will hold Tonka for about 5 to 7 days. And then if they can't get Jan, because Jan's on oxygen in the hospital with COVID, they will release Tonka to an Afghan rescue who may then adopt her out to a lovely family. And when Jan recovers, she will not get Tonka back.
I think when you told me that the first time, I was just like, the thought of not getting him back was just like enough for me to make a plan, And
Yep. If you don't make a plan, that's exactly what happens. I know, but for your listeners, when you come on the MAP call, I always require everyone that night to put a 3x5 card in a window, on a refrigerator, in a file that says directions for my dogs are in the yellow file by the refrigerator. If you don't want to leave people's numbers out, and leave a number or 2 or 3. I like 3. Redundancy is my friend. For people to call so that your dogs don't leave the house. So they know to call Jan and Sue and Mary, who will be able to take the dogs. And all Jan and Sue and Mary have to do is answer the phone. And they say, listen, Jan's going to the hospital. She's sick. And the dogs are here, or Tonka's here. And all they have to say is, I know what Jan wants me to do with Tonka. Leave him in the house. I have a key. That's it. And then, of course, Tonka's reality in the moment will remain the same. He won't be carted off to animal care and control. If, God forbid, we've talked about being in a car accident, you should have a 3x5 card in your car as well, because if you're hurt and you're carted off in an ambulance, they need to know who to call for Tonka, because all of us have tags or collars around the dog's necks that have our name and our number. Great, you're being carted off in the ambulance. They're going to be calling you, and you may or may not be able to answer your phone, and you may or may not be conscious. And so really having additional information with you in the car that's easy to find. I mean, in your pocketbook is great, in your wallet is great. However, it's even better if it's just a 3x5 card. I'm sort of crazy and tape it to my dashboard. However, people might not be crazy like me, as long as it's like in your coffee cup or in that little slot so they can find it easily if you're traveling with your dog, or even if you're not traveling with your dog. Your dogs are home. And if you are involved in an accident of some kind, somebody's going to have to go home and take care of them. So this is always good to have this one step that allows for your pet to continue and be maintained in the manner you want. Otherwise, not going to happen. And of course, all of those deal with writing.
Right. And then you have just the details of their care and all that kind of stuff, because you want it to remain consistent and the same, as close to as if you were there as possible.
It'll never be exactly like you, because all of us have so much up in our brain. But the MAP community and the MAP plan was created when I broke my ankle, in 2013, almost 9 years ago. I broke my ankle in the winter, and I had 9 dogs and had no one to take care of my pets. My husband raised his hand and said, he's taking care of me, not the dogs. I'm going to have to find out. And I figured I wasn't the only person in this world who had something happen to them and didn't have a plan for the care of their dogs. So I created the MAP plan. It stands for something. It says, make a plan. You have to sit down and make the plan. What would you like to happen to your dog if something happens to you? Long term, you're dead, or short term, you're sick and you'll recover. So the M stands for make a plan. The A stands for addressing the needs of your pet. We all have all of those idiosyncrasies about our beloved animals in our head. Great. Now we need to write them down, because I have a dog who doesn't like little white dogs. People need to know that, because she will show it to them at a most inopportune time if they're walking her. So you have to let them know if they have an idiosyncrasy, if they're afraid of thunder and lightning, if they don't like pills, if they get into mud, if they eat the garbage, whatever it is that's unique and you've adjusted to for your pet, you need to let somebody else know about, so that your dog remains safe. So you need to address the needs of your dog. Of course, that means, when you give HeartGuard, when you give NexGard, or whatever heartworm and flea care you administer, you need to put that down. This is when they get it. And then you need to appoint caregivers. So it's MAAP, make a plan, address the needs of your pet, appoint caregivers. And I am maniacal for 3, because I can tell you that in our community, as you know, Jan, we have had people who have set up their care for their pet, and at the last minute, somebody canceled, and they at least had 2 other people to ask to slot in. So you really need to have 3 so that somebody will be able to say, I can come and help short-term, long-term. And then the final one is the writing, the publishing of this plan. So if you address the needs of your pet, write them down. If you appoint caregivers, write them down. If you make a plan, write it down, and then you need to publish it with your caregivers, with your attorney, and with your vet.
I think that the other thing I thought of, because lately, I have to say on my local Facebook group, I have seen a number of dogs that the owner passed away.
Yeah.
And obviously there's no person to take this dog.
Please don't rely on your family to take your pet, because they might not get to the person you want them to get to, or somebody might take them and do the best they can, but they don't have directions. I mean, Tonka and my 2 Irish setters, they have directions. And if we make that transition easy for Tonka, and I can make it easy for Junie and for Mariah, I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that?
I mean, I feel so strongly, and I was looking at this dog the other day, which is a beautiful purebred shepherd, 6 years old, that they're looking for a home for. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I really hope this dog doesn't go to a shelter or whatever, because I think the last thing as a pet person, or being like, a pet parent or a pet owner, I don't like usually say owners, but pet person or parent, is to think that, our dog is just going to go to whoever.
Yeah.
If something
without
happens, without direction, and just go to whoever who's like, we have no clue. And I think that as much as we love our animals, that's kind of heartbreaking for me to think about.
Yeah, that's why the MAP plan was created, because it's supposed to navigate the journey your pet takes when you can't care for it. It's sort of, a metaphor. You're writing that map so they can find their way to the next good home. There are places out there, several on Facebook, that help transition animals. If you absolutely don't know anyone who could take your pet, they will take it and find someone. There are rescues for every single purebred dog. If you go on the AKC website and go to German Shepherds, in fact, I think I saw that post and I said, please go to German Shepherd, and I put the link up, German Shepherd Rescue, because they will take the dog, they'll evaluate the dog, and they have a list of people who want a German Shepherd. It's just about, knowing what to do if, God forbid, someone does pass without a plan and has a pet and nobody in the family can take it. And, I really feel that you might have a family member who says they're going to take it, and they might be one of your 3, but at the time that you need them to take it, they might not be able to take it. I mean, my sons are 2 of my caretakers for my dogs. One lives with a cat. My dogs don't like cats, so that sort of eliminated him from my list, even though he tells me, I'll take the dogs, Mom. I guess he's getting rid of his cat. That's not going to happen. And the other one lives in a no-dog building, no pet building, so he can't take them. So he'd have to pack up and move to another apartment in order to take my dogs. So I recognized I needed about 5 people in a row to take my dogs and to have the plan. So when you appoint these 3 people for the care of your pet, you need to give them the plan you want. You need to make them aware of it, and you need to really, once they say yes, check in with them every year. Because I had someone who had a dear friend who was going to take the dog forever, and she moved to a townhouse, and nobody ever realized that her townhouse only allowed 2 dogs under 30 pounds, and she had said she would take her best friend's German Shepherd. That's like 3 dogs, definitely over 30 pounds. So, here she is, ready, willing, and able to take the dog. But like my son in the apartment with no buildings, or my other with a cat, I'm so willing to take your pet, however I can.
Yeah, I have, let's say, the woman who fostered Tonka, and I know she would take him, but I had to get an alternate because she had multiple dogs, and one of the dogs didn't like him.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it's great that you love him, you want him, but I don't know if that scenario is going to really be possible in your current, home situation. And I
And in
also,
all those situations, it's really great, especially if somebody knows your dog, if they come and stay, if they're your dog walker. If you trust them with your dog, they might not be able to keep the dog long term, but they may find a great home for the dog. If you're ill, it might be that your dog walker would keep it until you recovered, and then the dog would come home. If you're, terminally ill, God forbid, love to get someone to take the dog once you can't care for it, but then bring the dog back so you could see it, or possibly take care of the dog while you're in hospice, because we all know there's nothing better than having our pets with us when we're ill. But these are all plans you have to make, because these things don't necessarily jump off the page. Often hospice care has been available, including the pets. And now there is hospice care for your pets that come in and help you provide hospice care for your pets. So we'll be talking about that this Wednesday when we talk about how to make a plan for your pet. What kind of end of life do you want for your pet? It's something we absolutely never want to think about. However, do you want a dog to be prolonged and have everything done for it that possibly could be done because you've left this money to take care of it? Or would you like it to have a quality of life? It's a discussion you have to have with yourself. Then you have to write it down so somebody will follow it. I mean, there are people who put in their will that if they pass away, they might have a 2 or 3-year-old dog that's perfectly healthy, but they don't know anyone and they want the dog put to sleep. And that's their will, and that's okay, because they don't think anybody can take care of the dog. However, if they join my community, usually we can help them find someone that they have camaraderie with, that they have a relationship with, that they know will take care of the dog in a way that would make them happy and not have to put the dog to sleep when they pass away.
It's so important. And I thought about when you were talking about redundancy and just, if you're capacitated or whatever, is just this feeling of been in situations where you have an emergency and you try one person and they're not available, and you try the next person and they're not available. And then you all of a sudden, and so having multiple people is just, especially these days when everybody is
so busy. I mean, you do have your cell phone attached to your hip, yes. However, they need to know that the EMTs and animal care and control need to hear a voice on the other end, and they need to hear that voice say, I know what Jan wants me to do with Tonka. Leave him in the house and I will be there forthwith. And leave a light on and I will be there. And then the wheels will be in motion. We talk, as you know, Jan, about the nosy neighbor. The nosy neighbor is like your best friend, because if you're being carried out, they can come across the street and say, listen, leave the dog in the house. Here's the letter from Jan that says the dog is to be left in the house. She left this with me so that I can put into motion the people who are going to come and take care of Tonka.
And I love I think I made this recommendation to somebody today about talking to the vet techs at at the vet's office, or someone else at the vet's office, because a lot of times they'll have a list of people who will actually
come and take care of your pet. Right. And you can build a relationship. I mean, even if you don't travel very much, you really need to build a relationship with someone in the event you're screwing a light bulb in and you're on a ladder. None of us over 21 should ever be on a ladder screwing in a light bulb. However, all of us will raise our hand when we say we do get up on a ladder and we do screw in the light bulb. However, then you fall off and shit happens. So you really need to make sure you create this. I mean, dog walkers, right? Pet food stores, some of the people at pet food stores put a 3x5 card up at a pet food store that says, love to meet someone who wants to, take care of my dog. I mean, you have to screen them. I mean, in this day and age, of course, everyone has to be cautious, but I would meet them in a park and I would meet them, with the dog to see how they did with the dog. Most of the time you're safe, but of course, be cautious, use common sense. Bring a friend with you while you're meeting someone new that you don't know, because it really is up to you to create this network of people who are going to help you in the event something happens. And P.S., as you know, Jan, I often say that also means that you need to help them too. My dog walker here in North Carolina was going away to her grandmother's funeral, and her dogs were staying with a friend of hers. And I said, please leave my number as a backup in case something happens and she can't take care of the dogs. And she goes, well, I never thought of that. She hasn't been on our call yet. I'm trying to get her. And I said, yes, but God forbid she falls down and breaks her leg, or something happens to her car and she can't get there, or whatever. I said, let her know that I live a mile away and I am happy to come and take care of the dogs.
And I think there are also just some circumstances which people don't think about. I think one day in one of the calls you brought up, like just circumstances where all of a sudden you have to leave.
Yeah.
Like you just have an emergency situation, an emergency family member gets ill, and all of a sudden you're out and about, and you're not going to get home on time, or traffic or delays, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh.
Those are all the D's, right? There's disease, delay, dementia, divorce, death is one of them. Disaster. I mean, what if you live in California and fires shift the wind shift and the fire comes to your house? You don't have time. You're at work in the city and your dogs are up on the top of the hill where the fire is. You better have the neighbors all squared away to how to take care of your pets if they're evacuating. I actually talked to, oh my God, it must be 8 years ago now, to a group. It's a horse community. So everybody in the neighborhood had horses and they all rode together. They had a great time together. And I was invited because someone heard me talk about this at a Women in the Pet Industry Network conference. And they invited me, they flew me to California to talk to the community of about 10 homes, very wealthy, obviously, because they flew me in. And they said, wow, we never even thought about making a plan for the horses, God forbid the fires come. And I said to them, how many of you have 2 hitches on a car? And one person raised their hand and the other ones all had 1 hitch for their trailer. I said, well, do you have a car that might make it down the hill with the trailer hitched to it? And most of them did. Some of them had Priuses and thought that might be a little much. However, they said, I'd wreck the Prius to get the horse off the mountain. But this way, if you and your wife are home, you and your husband are home, and the neighbors aren't home, you can drive your car, they can drive the neighbor's car, hitch the horses up and bring them down. Because that was the hardest thing in California, watching all the neighborhoods evacuate their horses by riding them and then pulling 3 or 4 behind them and bringing them to the beach, because nobody made a plan for the care of the pets and getting them off the hill. And they knew they had to get them off the hill all at once because they would never be allowed to go back and get them. So that's why I said to them, one of the safest things you can do is put a second hitch on so you can pick up your neighbor's horses and bring them down.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so many things like, you don't think about.
No, because the D's are not going to happen. You're not going to have a disaster. You're not going to have disease. You're not going to have, dementia. I mean, so many of us have seen people who've had dementia, and there were years when they couldn't take care of a pet, but boy, did that pet ground them. I had a woman who had one of my Irish setters, who I actually lent her daughter one of my Irish setters who she thought was that Irish setter. And she would be so calm and happy while Athena was there. She wasn't Harper, who she thought she was, but she definitely was someone who, a dog that reminded her. So it was really very happy for her. I was thrilled. I missed my dog for the 2 years where she took care of Wilma, but it really was something that I felt I needed to do to help Wilma stay grounded.
One of the things I do is I go into assisted living places quite often, and Tonka comes with me all the time. And it's so amazing to watch, like the love. I mean, they all want to adopt him. And I always say, but if you want to pet sit, I'm more than happy. Like, you can take him anytime you want, You can't adopt him, but I'm happy to lend him to you, or to or to give him to you to hang out with you for a few hours. That's really not a problem. There he is.
Well, that's one of the places that I go and speak, or assisted living, not really assisted living, but independent living. So if you're living independently with a bunch of over 50s, right? And they allow, say, 20-pound dogs, no one ever makes a plan for that dog. And it's amazing how when they check in, you buy it when you're maybe in your 70s, right? And you're there and all your meals are taken care of for you and everything is wonderful. And then in your 80s or 90s, things may go wrong. And the dog is still alive because they're usually little dogs who live to be about 20, right? So they're little dogs and they're still there. And the independent living facility has no idea. They call the family, and we talk about this on the MAP call, right, Jan? They call the family, but the family's taking care of the elderly parent or grandparent. So they really don't have time to take care of the pet right now. And the pet actually might go into a shelter because nobody has time right now because they're worried about their loved one. That to have someone in the wings to take care of your pet is such a godsend for your family. Because as my husband said when I broke my ankle, I'm taking care of you. And it isn't that they don't want to take care of your pets. At the moment, they're completely overwhelmed by caring for you. So having someone else be able to come in and take care of your pets and give your family a break, at least for the first week or so, or once a day, will be such a godsend for your family while they're navigating, bad news about you or your death or whatever. This really creates that consistency for your pet, and it eliminates the guilt and worry and fear of your family.
Well, we could talk about this forever. That's the way I feel. But I want you to share with everybody how they can join the call every Wednesday so that whoever has any wants to, hopefully everybody now wants to write a plan. So
Right.
everybody, that's just, we're going to put that out there right now, is that everybody needs to have one, and they should join the call on Wednesdays at 6:30 Eastern time so that they can learn a little bit more. But how do they find that again? Just to...
So if they go to Hamilton Law, LAWNDAND mediation, MEDIATION, and I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. But if they go to Hamilton Law mediation, you'll see the little button up at the top that says the MAP call, and you can just sign up. It's free. We all chat for about 30 minutes from 6:30 to 7, although I don't think I've ever gotten off at 7, simply because we're in the middle of such a great discussion and answering questions that we don't get off the phone right away. But it's only usually about 30 to 45 minutes. And we talk about something really important about the care of your pet, or about issues that arise involving pets, or something in the news that involved a pet. So that everybody is current, everybody knows what MAAP stands for. And by the time you get off the call, you have your 3x5 card on the fridge, and you also have a better idea of what you want to do with your pet, how you want to make that plan, who you might want to appoint, what are those idiosyncrasies about your pet, and who you need to publish it with. Because again, if you don't publish it with your veterinarian and your attorney and your family and the caregivers, it really won't be carried out. So you need to have that redundancy too, that a lot of people know what that plan is. So it's Wednesday nights, as you said, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. And the button is right there on Hamilton Law Mediation. You can navigate around Hamilton Law Mediation as much as you want, because we do have do-it-yourself MAP plans that you can download all the forms and fill them out. And we also have workshops usually once every quarter, but that probably won't happen until the fall, because I've moved and I am totally at wit's end with making sure that I'm unpacked. I have 7 storage units now, so I apologize to everyone that we didn't get one this summer. But maybe we'll have one. I'm sure we'll have one in the fall. But we absolutely have a free call every Wednesday night. Jan is a member of the community. There's lovely people there who always impart something very valuable to each of us, and think of something, because it's a shared community. We share experiences we have, how our pets are. So we always know there's people here. And really, I think, Jan lives close to one of the members of the community, Sally. So if anything ever happened, I'm sure that they would connect with each other and see if they could work together. They're not next door, but they definitely, if an emergency occurred, would probably be able to help each other. So there's that camaraderie as well. Some of them are from California. One guy's from Tanzania. So it really is a great group, very friendly, and really helps everyone understand the need to do this thing we never want to do, which is plan for the care of our pets if something happens to us. We always think we're going to outlive our pets, and God willing, that usually is what occurs. And then you have to deal with that other thing. However, if that doesn't occur, you really need to, they're depending on us, right, Jan? They're depending on us to make sure that their life doesn't change because we've died or incapacitated.
And now you gave me something else to think about for before tomorrow, is that, if we have to, if we leave, what we want their care to be. And I never really thought about
that's
that.
absolutely part of addressing needs of the pet.
And I'm like sitting there going like, oh my gosh, something else I now have to think about, but I'd rather think about it now than not have had the opportunity to think about
it. And that doesn't mean that whoever gets your dog, whoever you have as a caregiver for your dog, long-term, short-term, is going to do it, but at least they know. And if they can, they will, because people are usually desirous of following the desires of the pet owner and not, inuring their desires on the dog, or cat or bird or horse, because we do all of them, especially parrots. So if any of your people are parrot owners or no parrot owners, they definitely need to make a plan, because that parrot's outliving them. I'm telling you now, that parrot's outliving them. So they need to make a plan. And there are so many parrot rescues because nobody makes a plan for their parrots. And usually the parrots say things that don't necessarily mix in mixed company. So sometimes, they say naughty things. So you have to really make a plan for your parrot.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for getting on and helping us and guiding us today. And I look forward to having you back real soon.
Oh, I can't wait. You take care. And I hope I see some of your listeners on Wednesday night.
Great.
You've been listening to Pets, People, Life, and Longevity, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch every episode at exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts.